Welcome back to a brand new episode of Private Parts with me, Liv Bentley. This is the podcast where nothing is off limits. Today I have a very special guest joining me on the Private Parts sofa. It's presenter, host, and she's empowering women with her self-love message, Claira Hermet. So
Hi.
I suddenly just had to double check I said your surname correctly.
You did.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming today. I am actually very excited about this one because you are quite amazing on social media for empowering women, basically.
Yeah.
Could you explain a little bit about what it is you do?
So basically, I just talk about my own life and my own experience. And I think there are lots of women that can relate to that. So, for example, I'm 41, single and child-free.
Yeah.
And I think
I love that, by the way.
Yeah.
Honestly. Also, can I just say, if you don't have a child, I don't want to hang out with people and their kids, if I'm totally fucking honest. Like, there's a reason I don't have kids. It sounds awful to say that, and I've got lots of godchildren, which is fine. But yeah, I think some people forget that sometimes.
Yeah, I think so. And also, I think talking about that, and then the fact that, you know, even though I'm in that position, I think it's made me even more firm in the mindset of like, I don't want to settle. I want the right partner. And I think the fact that I've made my life really good and happy and joyful exactly as it is, rather than, you know, feeling like something's missing or I'm lacking. I have decided that life is way too short to spend it being miserable and unhappy, and just shifted, I guess, like my mindset, my perspective to just enjoy the life that I have right now.
I don't know what it is at the moment, and I don't know if it's because I'm 30. Half my friends are like married with kids. And so it's sort of like I don't know if it's a sort of society thing that you automatically think you have to hit a certain age and then suddenly be in a relationship and then you have to get married and have kids. But everyone does still think that way. Like, it's very unique to not have that. I don't know why.
I think it is a societal thing, right? We're told that success looks like by this age we tick this box, we tick this box, we tick this box, we tick this box. But I think that, you know, we are kind of the first generation that realizes how much choice we have as women.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think even our parents, although, you know, laws had been changed and women, you know, legally had equal rights, it doesn't mean that we've overcome years and years and years and years of, you know, society telling us where we belong and what our role is and how our life should be. Whereas I think for this generation of women, it's like, well, hold on a second, you know, yes, I'm supposed to be in a relationship, but what do I want that relationship to be like? And we have to remember that when we choose our partner, we are choosing the quality of our life with that person, you know, like how they treat us, whether they have effective communication, whether they're aware of their emotions, like all of these things determine the quality of our relationship, of our life, of, you know, this is the person that we're going to spend the most time with. So I think we have to be really careful about that selection. And so I think, women are doing that more and more.
And spotting red flags, which I obviously am not very good at, to be honest with you. I sort of wave those banners around and move on. It's not great. Did you have a particular bad breakup or anything that suddenly made you feel like this?
No, do you know what? I think I've had relationships. It's not that I haven't had relationships. I do think the last relationship I had, which was about 6.5 years ago, made it very, very clear for me what I do not want.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is the real positive. But it made me miserable. That relationship made me really unhappy. And I found that I was the one that was pouring in energy. I was the one that was really doing all of the work and trying to help and trying to support. And it gets to a point where it's like, no, this needs to be balanced. Yeah. It needs to be reciprocated, right? The energy and effort that you put in. And when it's not, it's exhausting. And I think there's something within me that refuses to leave myself in a situation where I am deeply unhappy. I did everything I possibly could to try and make that relationship work. I did. But if the other person isn't willing to do the same, you can't.
Do think women will work it until the very bitter end. Like, they will try their hardest.
Yeah, exactly.
Where I think, and I don't know if it's me or most people struggle, or women struggle, where do you think you draw the line as to how you suddenly know something isn't right? Because it's weird. I know everyone says you have this gut feeling or something happens, but I've been in relationships and I've made them last longer than they definitely should have done. But why is it so? I don't know. Why is it so hard to walk away when you know you should? That's what's hard.
I think because you like and care about that person, and you've had positive, good, great moments with them. And in your head, you kind of say to yourself, if only they could be, if only they could, but the problem is that then I think we're dating someone's potential rather than
the
who
potential side.
they actually are. Because the problem is, like, if you've ever tried to change yourself, right, you know it's really, really difficult.
Yeah.
So how are you going to change somebody else? You cannot, unless they want to and they're motivated to change. You can't. So this is why I think as women, it's so important that we see the reality of who someone is, especially in early dating, because it's so easy to get caught up in the, oh, but I really like him, and overlook the red flags. But it's like, no, we have to kind of ground ourselves and really be like, okay, let's look at this. Who is this person? Because again, like I said, this is going to decipher a lot of your life if you're in a partnership with them.
And the older you get, the more serious it becomes. Like when you're young and you're dating, it's slightly different because you don't sort of look that far into the future. Whereas now it's like someone you want to potentially have a family with, like all those sorts of things.
Yeah. And your requirements change, right? Like what you want changes. And also you don't have as much time. Like that's the thing. You can't kind of mess around. And I think, certainly as I've got older, dating for me now is very intentional. I know what I want and I'm not afraid to ask those questions or to say those things. And if that turns someone off, great, because then I know that
this is perfect. It's like dating 2.0. I need this for my next time round. This is great.
Yeah, but then they're not looking for the same thing as you. So it gets rid of them, get them out. And, I think as women, we have to remember we hold power. We don't need men. And I think that's the thing. It should be a choice. It should be, I'm choosing you. And that feels like something really nice. We don't want to be stuck in a situation where we feel reliant on this person for validation or for happiness or for anything. So that's why I talk a lot about working on your relationship with yourself. Yeah. Because when you have that, then you can make kind of balanced choices. You're not making a choice from a place of lack. You're making a choice from a place of wholeness. And I think that's really important.
And also being happy in yourself before you let someone else in.
Because you post this a lot, how men react to.
Oh yeah.
They don't like me.
But what? Can we men shame? Oh yeah. So wait, so what do men say when you're vocal about all this?
I think it's really important to say it's not all men.
Not all men, fine, men and women. No, actually, women are probably worse. Actually, aren't they? Or they're not.
I have so much love and support from women. There's very rarely anything negative said by a woman on any one of my posts. But it seems like me just talking about being, 41, single, child-free and happy is the thing that really seems to enrage certain men on the internet to the point where they tell me I'm expired, I failed at my only purpose for existing, I'm useless, I'm left over. The list of insults is endless.
I'll troll them back. Happily. It's a new hobby of mine, actually. I'm going to start trolling men like this.
What I do is I take their comments and make content out of them now because I'm just like, you know what? It doesn't bother me anymore because I know who I am. And what I see is just that these people are projecting their own insecurities, their own sadness, their own loneliness, their own anger, their own frustrations onto me. Like if I see something on social media that triggers me, I'm introspective enough to be like, right, why is this triggering me? What is it, how is it impacting me internally? But obviously these men don't have that skill or capability. And I don't know how saying that I am waiting for the right person and advising other women to do the same would be infuriating, because for me it's like, if you're a man, surely you want a woman who loves herself, who is happy, who doesn't, need you. But I think actually some men don't want that.
They want the pretty little housewife who shuts the fuck up.
Yeah. Or they want someone who's maybe is insecure, who is easy to manipulate.
But that's narcissism at its finest. When the lights go out, there's a narcissist in the building.
It almost catches your breath.
But what do you look at their profiles?
Sometimes
I love to look at their profiles, and I just think, you cretin.
I put their pictures on there. There's one guy who said I did a post, and he lives in a tent.
No,
I'm like, hun, please come on.
People have some balls, don't they?
I'm just like, but what he did is he wrote, women expire like milk, and no, women age like milk and men age like fine wine, but he spelt wine with an H, and I'm like, yeah, you are whining. Men do wine.
No, it's
so the comment
mortifying.
section is hilarious.
Really?
It's really funny.
I've only recently come across this whole reading of the comment section. I don't know why. I don't really. But actually, it's brutal. But I quite like when people have a sort of cock off on the comments.
It's funny.
That's savage.
Yeah, there's loads of savage comments, but again, that isn't. I think if you are a person who does anything that's, you know, kind of where you're facing an audience, where you're facing the public, you're going to get rubbish. Like my friend said to me, we were talking about it, and she said she went to watch a video about pineapple tea, and she wanted to know how to make pineapple tea, and she's like, what could you possibly say negative about pineapple tea? And she's like, I went into the comment section and people were arguing about how you make it, the right way to do it. You've stole that for me. That's not
No,
and
people need to take a day off.
Right.
It's extraordinary.
So it's not personal because that person doesn't know me at all. They've seen one tiny little clip of me, and you know, it says more about them that they're so enraged by a woman feeling like she can be happy without having a man or children.
Yeah. Are there any comments that do affect you, or is there anything in particular that anyone has ever said that you're like, actually, you know, that does kind of like hurt?
I think years ago, but because I've been kind of making content for so long, I think I've seen and read and heard it all, and so now I feel like I just have quite a tough skin when it comes to that stuff, and it doesn't really faze me.
It's also such a load of bollocks.
It is though.
Right.
It's the same comments over and over again, like literally almost like copied and paste, word for word. It's the same insults. It's the same kind of buzz statements that people are making, and then just being reiterated in the comment section, and it just doesn't bother me.
Yeah. That's the best way to be. How old were you when you think you made this like turning point of suddenly feeling a lot more secure and happy with the way your life was going? Or was it off the back of that relationship? Because you know how everyone says when you get to your 30s, you'll be more confident, but I can't, I'm still waiting.
I think there's a couple of big shifts that have happened for me. So one, I had a preventative double mastectomy.
Yeah, I want to talk about.
So I lost my mum and sister to breast cancer, and I carry the BRCA gene mutation. And during that process, that changed my whole relationship with my body.
So when was this?
So this was in 2015, the start of 2015. So it's been 10 years now since I had the mastectomy. And at that point, I mean, I had gone through periods of, I absolutely hated myself and my body. I hated my life. I felt like, not that I was suicidal, but I didn't want the life that I had. I just hated everything. I was really unhappy, really miserable. And I started to make changes after my sister died when I was 28. Because for me, my mum had died when I was a child. My life, I describe it as a chaotic mess between the age of like 9 and 28. And when Emily passed away, I was just like, I have a choice, and my choice is that I'm still here on this earth. What am I going to do with this life?
Yeah.
And my mum and sister don't have that choice. So that's when I decided that I was going to find a way to be happy. And I was like, I don't know how to do it, but I understand that other people have, understand that other people can be. So I must be able to be. So I'd already kind of started on that journey with, you know, reading books, going to seminars, doing different things. And then the mastectomy, I think it just shifted how I saw my body, and I went from seeing it as a object that needed to look a certain way.
Sorry, so you have the gene that your mum and your sister did, and you just decided to.
So it's a gene mutation. So they say that if you have the gene mutation, you have an 85% life chance of getting breast cancer.
Okay.
And because my mum got breast cancer, she had it twice, and then she died at 43. My sister got breast cancer at 25 and died at 31. Oh my God. So I knew the information, and the only preventative measure that they have is to have a preventative double mastectomy. So it kind of felt like a little bit of a no-brainer. From when I discovered that I had the gene to when I actually had the operation, you know, I'd had time to kind of adjust and decide. And so that operation, I just found a new appreciation and love for my body, because I was like, actually, it's not about how you look. You are my support system. Yeah. Like, I'm here because you're here, and you're my friend. You allow me to do every single thing that I want to do. Yeah. And no matter what I have put this body through, it has like absolutely stood by me. And I just felt like a real kind of closeness with my body. So that changed that. And in terms of a shift of how I feel about myself, I think that's really been like probably the last like 4 or 5 years. So as I've got into my 40s, I just feel more like confident, happier, more myself, more authentic.
Is there anything you religiously do to help yourself remain like that?
Exercise.
Yeah.
And I don't exercise from a place of, it's not appearance, it's for my mind.
Yeah,
and
I'm the same.
Yeah, but that's how I can be consistent. I think when I was doing it from a place of wanting to look a certain way, it was hard because it felt like pressure, and the voice inside my head, my inner dialogue was negative. Whereas now, it's funny, like sometimes I chuckle to myself in the gym because the voice in my head is like, go on, Hermit, you know, whatever it is that I'm doing. It's like this encouraging like voice, and it's so lovely to have that. And so cultivating a better inner dialogue has been really powerful. But I do meditate, I journal, I do lots of different things, but not always consistently, just in chunks normally.
Yeah, interesting. Back to the breast cancer, because I talk a lot about this with my friends. With your sister, do you mind talking about this?
No,
Sorry.
not at all, no.
Did she notice anything, or she didn't notice the lump? Because I didn't realise you're on the. Is it on the NHS to get you're not meant to go get your boobs checked until you're in your fifth. How old are you meant to be?
So it's in your 50s because mammograms don't work on younger breast tissue.
Okay, right. So that's what it is.
So it's something to do with the density of your breast tissue or something like that, so that when you have a mammogram done, it wouldn't show lumps. So that's why they don't do it until you're older. And also, I guess, because it is unusual. It's getting more usual for younger women to develop breast cancer.
That's the scary thing. But people, I don't think, can you explain to me how I should check my boobs? Do you know how to?
Well, I think basically you have to kind of move in a circular motion and go all the way round. Copperfield, for example, who are a charity, they have, if you go onto their Instagram, they'll show you exactly how to do it. And the most important thing is that you know your own body so you can recognize changes. And I think that's the thing. It's like, you know, if you've never done that before, you could be like, oh, what's that? And it might just be a gland. It might be, you might have a benign cyst or anything. But if you're not regularly checking so that you know your body, so that you can detect changes, that's kind of like an issue. And the thing is, it's like we don't want to make ourselves anxious and kind of paranoid, but when you're in the shower, you could easily just do that as part of a like a routine or a habit.
But it's interesting that it's not sort of like not commonplace, but people don't. It's not one of the things you would think to check. I mean, I know obviously when you're younger, that it's always about the cervical cancer jabs and all that sort of stuff. But your boobs, for some reason, I mean, I suppose now it is more of a sort of thing. Yeah, sorry, now I'm just playing with my boobs.
Like,
honestly, just copping a feel. It's a strange thing. Bloody hell. And so when you have sorry, I'm just more fascinated. When you have a mastectomy, you have your boobs taken out, and then you wait, and then did you get a boob job?
They did it all in one go.
All in one go.
So do a reconstruction. So basically, I had a boob job when I was 20.
Yeah.
Because I was really very flat-chested, very paranoid about it. You know, like I said, I hated my body, and I really thought that was going to fix it. It didn't. But at the time, I was like, this is going to change everything for me.
It's interesting that you say that, because I was keep seeing all these podcasts about girls who get so much stuff done, thinking it's going to make them happy, but it's not how you look on the outside. I think people forget it, and younger people really forget it. They think it's all about the way you look, not the way you feel.
But that's it. You have to change on an internal level.
Yeah.
Like you have to learn how to like and appreciate yourself, because like I found once I had had bigger boobs, it really didn't change anything. If anything, it made me even more uncomfortable because it drew a lot of attention to me. And also it's like, do people like me, or they just like my boobs? Or, you know, it's that kind of question. I was really young. I was like just turned 20. And the only thing that has made a difference is in like creating a better internal relationship and dialogue with my body. But yeah, so what they do is, so I'd had a boob job when I was younger, and when they went to do my surgery, so it is really different, because when you have a boob job, you have natural breast tissue.
Yeah.
So it kind of like covers the implants, and it makes things look a little bit, kind of more natural. When you're doing a preventative double mastectomy, the idea is to remove as much breast tissue as possible. So they scrape it off your chest wall, they scrape it off your muscles, like from your skin, everything, just get rid of the tissue. I opted to keep my nipples, which leaves it like 1 or 2% more breast tissue.
Yeah.
But they do tell you, my surgeon was amazing, but he was like, they could go dusty and, fall off essentially, or have to be removed, because when you have natural breast tissue, the blood supply to them comes through that.
Yeah.
Whereas when you remove that, it can only come through the skin, and they're obviously the furthest point. So I think it's like it's like a 60% chance that they'll survive, like 30% that they won't. But I was like, I'm willing to risk it. I'm keeping my nipples. But they did one operation. They cut from here all the way around, then around my nipple like that, so they can get down,
And
up,
get everything
scrape everything out. What they often use, because then there's nothing, because there's no natural breast tissue, there's nothing for the implant to float in. So it's just the skin holding it, and the skin's not strong enough.
Yeah.
So they use a piece of purified pig or cow skin.
Sorry. Oh my God. What to
Like
hold
to hold the weight.
underneath?
But because I'd had breast implants previously, my body had made a capsule, like a cell capsule around the implant, and they were able to reuse that for me.
Okay.
So it actually worked out better. And I had the reconstruction done in the same operation, and now I can do that. So
That's quite jokes, actually. Your
like-
pecs. There's so many different things, and I don't know how much you would know about all this stuff, but what, like, now people can get like filler in their boobs or Botox in your underarm or all this kind of stuff. Should people be a lot more wary of that kind of thing?
I think so. I think,
where do you just want to draw the line? Because it's so hard. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think it's breast cancer is such a scary thing. And like you were saying, it is a lot more common now. Like, is it worth I can't see the risk in why you would do something like get filler in your boobs.
I've just heard about this today, but from what I understand about filler and the fact that it can kind of migrate, that it can, lumps of it can appear all over the place. I don't know how that would work, when it comes to scans that they would do. We mentioned the mammograms earlier, but for example, in a younger woman, it might be that you have an ultrasound first, or it might be that you'd have to have an MRI. So, the question is, how does that filler show up? And could it, look like a lump, or could it, and then they might be like, oh, it's just filler, or you might think, oh, it's just filler and it's not. There's also questions around, whether, I suppose, it will be interesting to see as more and more people have this done over a length of time, how does that impact things? Does it, could it in any way, I'm not saying that it does cause cancer, but could it? I don't know. Like, there's all of these questions, there's all of these unknowns, and I think that we are, I can't really talk. I had a boob job, but I do think with that you can scan it easily and you can just see the implant. However, I had the PIP implants, which are the ones that they found out about 10 years ago were leaking essentially, and they have caused problems. And I don't want to get this factually incorrect, so people can go and Google it. But in certain women who already had existing some kind of existing cancer, it's kind of the leaking silicone has brought all kinds of issues around that, really bad issues. So, and in France, it was dealt with really well and everyone got compensation, whereas here, you're just on your own. So it's not been dealt with very well, and there are women with all kinds of complications. So I think, we do have to go into these things realising that there are risks attached. And I don't know, it's so hard, isn't it? It's so hard because I've had filler in my lips. I've had Botox before in my life.
Oh, listen, you're talking to the queen of it over here. This face is normally frozen, but I shouldn't be able to move my eyebrows.
But then it's like, it's kind of like weighing up the pros and cons, because you just think of it as kind of quite frivolous, and that it's not gonna, have any long-term lasting impacts. But I guess we don't really know.
Yeah.
But
I think there's a slight limit. Like the one that I struggle to wrap my head around is the bum one. The woman who died, like that, I think is, I don't know, it's so hard because I guess everyone wants to look good, but at what cost, really?
But also, who defines what looking good is? And
this is the thing. We were talking about this the other day. Like, what? I mean, I know it's like it's more inner beauty. I think if you're a beautiful person, it actually does reflect the way you are. But our perception of what we think is beautiful now is very different to what it used to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's always been predetermined.
Yeah.
The kind of idea and beauty standard, and it's always unattainable. And I think that's kind of, the whole point, because look at all the industries that are born out of, women feeling the need to have to look a certain way to be considered beautiful.
The thing I don't like is men, and I've seen it with girlfriends who have encouraged them to get certain procedures done for their benefit, not the girls, as in because that's what the guy wants, which I think is fucking disgraceful.
Yeah, I mean...
It's bad. Like, how could a guy have any say on that?
Of course. But also, if someone doesn't love and accept you for you, then what happens in 10 years' time,
Yeah.
20 years' time? Because no matter how much work you have done, you're still going to age. Like, it's going to happen. So I think it's like you want someone who loves you for the person that you are, and someone who is, you know, kind of consciously aware of the fact that these standards of beauty are kind of set up, and they're set up for women to, you know, fail. You want someone who understands that and maybe has put themselves in the perspective of what it might be like to be a woman, and can truly be understanding, rather than I have these expectations, you need to do this for me.
Yeah.
Because also that would, you know, that must make you feel so insecure and, you know, less than and not enough. And it's just, that's not, to me, that's not the kind of relationship that I would want to be in. And it's not the kind of partner that I would want either.
And anyone listening should not be in that sort of relationship, if that sort of rings any bells. I was just going to ask, what advice would you give to anyone who might have been or is in your position, who has the gene and is contemplating getting a double mastectomy?
I would say do it. I think I got to a place where I felt really positive about it, and I was like, look, you know, I'm sure at some point there could be a time where they're like, actually, you know, doing that doesn't really help, or, you know, whatever it is. But for me, it was more about my mental well-being, and I didn't want to have to worry. I didn't want to have to feel anxious. I'm in a place where they're telling me there's something I can do about it, and I can do that thing. And it's, you know, it's not, yes, I have to go under anesthetic, so there's always a risk with that. But, you know, this is something that I can do for myself that makes me feel empowered. I just think
I think it's incredibly brave.
Yeah, you have to go into it with a, you know, with an open mind, but just understand that you're doing the best thing for you and your future, I guess.
It's obviously probably a stupid question, but how did it impact you losing probably the two strongest women in your life? Like, how
Horribly.
it's all, and I couldn't imagine it.
Yeah, I think I had two very different experiences of grief, one as a child and one as an adult.
Yeah.
And, you know, the childhood experience of losing my mum was brutal. No one told her she was going to die. So as much as I understood my mum was really ill and she'd been in a hospice, I didn't know what hospice was. I thought, you know, it was somewhere that you just go to relax when you're not feeling very well, and that you're going to get better. And I do remember sitting and watching a program with my mum and dad of a woman who had cancer, and she died. And my dad kind of saying to me, that's what your mum has. And I looked at my mum and I was like, but you're like, you can just be here until I'm 18. Just be here till I'm 18. Like, that was my kind of, you know, if you're here until then, I'll be okay kind of thing. And my mum, she died at home, and I said goodbye to her when I went to school, you know, and she was like bedbound. She was really ill. It was, you know, I cut her hair off. There was a lot of stuff. She had like open wounds all on her chest. It was a lot, you know, for a child. But I still didn't understand that meant she could die. And I know my parents were trying to protect us, but I truly wish that they had that discussion with us as children.
Do you know how would you do that though? Like, if you had a child, like, how do you say that?
You just have to tell them. Like, I think children are way more resilient than people give them credit for, but also it didn't help, because when she was gone, there's so many things unanswered. You know, she left us, she wrote little notes to us on the day that she died, like these tiny little kind of like gift cards. So we each have those. My brother was 6, I was 9, my sister was 12. But our life descended into chaos. And, you know, I kind of describe it a little bit like the upside down in what's the show called? Stranger Things. Because in a way everything looked the same, but nothing was ever the same again. It was just gone. So, you know, my dad turned into a different person overnight. All the rules that we had were gone. Everything was just different. And you're a child, and you're trying to find some kind of like stability or something to grasp onto, and it just wasn't there. And unfortunately, I guess because the time it was, no one knew how to speak about grief. It just wasn't mentioned. You just get on with it. So I was dealing with that individually on my own, internalizing it, and, you know, making all kinds of assumptions. I guess I was heartbroken. I was angry. And it ended up kind of manifesting as then like overeating, and then eating disorders and self-loathing, and like all of these different things, which is why I say that my life was a kind of chaotic mess for a long time. And, you know, like, I love my dad, and he's the most amazing man. And, you know, I struggle to ever say anything about him that isn't good, because I understand that he acted from the place that he was in and did the best that he could. but he got a new partner really quickly, moved her into the house, and it was just
That's a
again
lot, yeah.
like not a particularly suitable person. Not that she's not a lovely person,
Yeah.
but it was very, very messy. And that's something that like hugely impacted all of us.
Who
And
did you find that you could seek help or support from? Was there any, like, did you sort of club together with your siblings, or?
no, really not. So my sister, who I became really close with later on, I think like she was obviously really struggling, so she started bullying me and like kind of calling me fat every day, and and then my brother was younger and he joined sides with her, so it was really intense. Like it was a lot. And also like when you're a kid, your peers don't know what you're going through. They've got no clue whatsoever. Their life is still that innocent kind of way. And so there wasn't really anyone that understood. My grandparents, again, they didn't like my dad's choice of partner, so that drove like more division. And it just, so there was so much going on as a child that it was just like, everything's
Can I just say, I
upside
think
down.
you're completely remarkable and amazing for being the way you are now, having gone through that kind of thing. Because I think a lot of people wouldn't come back from that.
Yeah.
And then that's even prior to your sister.
Yeah. And then I think I was just starting to get my life together when my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. At the time, I like got into TV presenting. I'd started working for Sky. And I can remember it so clearly. She'd been traveling in Australia with her then boyfriend, and she'd like found a lump. She didn't tell us. She went to her doctor, and they're like, "I'm sure it won't be anything. You're so young, etc." And my dad was like, "No, you need to go and get a second opinion now," because he's obviously experienced this before. And she did. And when she went to see a breast specialist, he did a biopsy, but before he'd done the biopsy, he just straight away was like, "I think it's breast cancer." So she came and sat down with me and told me. And again, it just destabilized everything, because I've been here before, and I like in my head, it's like you want to think positive, but I've seen the outcome. And Emily, it was 6.5 years of, it was just horrible. It was relentless. Always, she'd have chemo, and within a couple of months, it would be back in a different place. And so it was just this constant in and out of hospitals, operations, chemo. And I think I always tried to be exactly what my dad had done. We bring humor into it. We kind of make sure the other person's funny. Like there was one time she was at University Hospital, the one on Euston Road, and she was supposed to be like staying in her room. She was, really unwell, and I got a wheelchair, and it was snowing, and she had like pajamas and a dressing gown on, and we just ran out the hospital, and we were like running down Tottenham Court Road. She wanted to go to Costa and have a hot chocolate and a cake, so I was like, "Fuck it, we're gonna go." And yeah, I was there like till 11, 12 o'clock at night, and then going home, and then going back to the hospital. And the day that she died, did not expect that to happen. But again, she was so ill. She was in a hospice, but she was so unwell, and at this point, like her throat was like out here, and she kind of had lumps, and her voice was squeezed. She couldn't eat properly, and she was so like tiny, like because she couldn't eat. She was constantly in pain. You couldn't keep her comfortable. It's horrible to see someone like that.
In that pain,
And I think the only regret I have in my whole entire life is that I didn't have a conversation with her about death.
Really? But do you think I mean, not that anyone wants to die, but do you think that was she wanted to? She was like, or do you think she wanted to?
She spoke to my grandparents about it and said that she's really scared. Like she was, they'd said to me afterwards that she was like so scared of dying and etc. And I just think that because we kind of tried to keep it in the space of humor and light, like we'd, been taught to, we didn't have that conversation. And it makes me sad that she was scared and that I wasn't able to kind of support her in that. But also I feel like there's questions that I wanted to ask her, and there's things that I wanted to say to her that because we didn't have that conversation, we weren't able to. And so, that's kind of like the only thing that I regret.
But do you think you're sort of at peace with it?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be. And I think my sister she gave me, as I said, we weren't always close, but we definitely, after her diagnosis, that was it. Like, and we were kind of friendly before that, but after that, it was like locked in, and we got so much closer during that time. So I'm grateful for that. But her house was like my sanctuary. She was a proper big sister. And I think, you know, it is really difficult when you don't have I've got my brother and I've got my dad, and that's it. Like, that's our family. And it is really difficult sometimes when you're just like, you want to feel like you belong somewhere, or like somewhere is home. And so I've had to try and create that for myself. And that's why and I know that if I can do it, like, having been through the experience that I've been through, anyone can.
Can I just say, it puts, I'm one of 5 kids, but it puts everything into such perspective. And I think when you hear stories like this, it makes you realise like how valuable the people are around you.
Yeah.
And I bet it makes you think when you hear your mate's going through something stupid, you're like, just get the fuck on with it, mate. Look what I've gone through.
Yeah. To be fair, so I've got like my best friend and then another one of my really close friends. And we, like, they'll make jokes to me about it because they know what I'm like. So if they're complaining about their mums, I'll just be like, yeah, but my mum's dead.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there is that kind of like element of humour. And I understand everything's relative, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's, you know, that's the truth. It's not my experience is worse than your experience. It is just my experience. But the way that I reframe it is, I would not be who I am doing what I'm
Without that.
doing with the life that I have, knowing the people that I know, had I not have been through that experience.
Yeah.
And also I feel like you can't argue with reality. Like, if this is how my life's meant to be, because this is how my life is. So what am I going to do? Is, you know, dig my heels and say,
wallow in it almost.
I can't afford to do that.
What would you say to anyone who is again in your position with a sibling, or anyone who's close to them that is going through quite severe cancer and looks like it's on the way out? Like, what would you say to them to do?
Have those conversations, like, be brutally honest, as difficult as they are, because you can't, if they're not here anymore, you can't do it. And I speak to a lot of people who have cancer or who have had cancer. And one of the most difficult things is their loved ones not wanting them to talk about their fears.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're accepting that they're going to die or that they think they're going to die. But if you get told you have cancer and you've grown up in this world that, you know, puts those two things together, the reality is that those thoughts are going to cross your mind, and you want to discuss them with the people closest to you. Whereas very often the people closest to those people will shut them down and say, you know, like, let's not say that, don't talk about that, don't talk like that. It's like, no, I need to express myself. I need to be heard. I need to be seen. So I think, you know, we're not good, especially as British people.
Talking about feelings.
Yeah, talking about feelings and talking about death and grief. But, you know, you're in a position, you have to find the words, even if it's clumsy or clunky or whatever. Just have that conversation, give that person permission, and say all the things that you need to say to that person. And make sure they know how loved they are.
So yeah, that's a lot.
You know, it makes me, I think my approach to like death and dying is really different to other people's, because...
But also your approach to life.
Yeah. But I think you have to, sometimes the two things go together, right? Because we have to accept we're all going to die. Like, it's not, none of us are here forever, although there's some people that are trying, I'm sure. But so I think if you accept that death is part of it, it can help you live in a better way. But also there's loads of stuff as well around like dying well now. So you have like death doulas, death midwives, like or soul midwives they're called. Really interesting industry.
What, and they come to your house and you sort of die at peace at home?
Yeah, and like really help people to let go, because, you know, I guess they pull from maybe like ancient traditions and etc. and just kind of talk to that person before about what might happen, what it might feel like, and, you know, what to do.
Yeah.
Because like apparently I think that there's some kind of thing around a peaceful death leads you into a peaceful afterlife, etc. So yeah, I guess.
Are you quite spiritual?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like not religious.
Yeah.
But spiritual, because I wanted to find answers, you know, like as well, to try and kind of find something that made any kind of sense as to why we're even here in the first place, or why, you know, such hard and difficult things happen to people. And it has, you know, it's given me a lot, and I'm grateful for that.
Being tested.
Yeah.
I've never experienced it the way you have, but when you're younger and someone old dies, it's expected. But then suddenly when someone young dies, it's like a whole different thing, because you don't get it.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a like I had an uncle who suddenly died, and it was out of nowhere. And then it's just a very strange thing
It
to
is
have to
because
try and go through.
they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
And I think you grow up thinking the only people that die are old people, and that's why I guess I didn't think that about my mum, because like, she's not
so young.
old, so you know
Yeah.
she's not like my nan and granddad, and they were all still there. So why would my mum die? So I do think there is that expectation, and also like my grandparents, my dad's parents, they were really cool, and they both died at 93, and they died 6 weeks apart. But we used to say all the time, like, we've had such a good life, like we've had a great life. We go now, we're so happy. And, you know, that's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Like to be able to get to that place where you can say that. But a lot of people don't.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't appreciate what they've got while they've got it. It's sad.
It is. But it's, you know what, on the way here, I was looking at the fact that we have 60,000 thoughts a day. 80% of them are negative and 95% of them are reoccurring.
Sorry.
So it's easy to see why we don't appreciate.
But how can we change that? Like, what is it? How can one person? How can you yourself change that? Like, if you're someone who has these negative things, what can one do to change that?
I think so some of it is from our evolution, you know, of trying to keep us safe. So perceived threats all the time, you know, that kind of perception of threats. But also I think like we do overthink a lot, and what we don't realize is that we can choose our thoughts. Like we don't realize that. So whatever that incessant thinking is, we just get stuck in that loop and keep having it. But if I was like, whisper your name in your head right now, you can do it. Or if I was like to say to you, start singing Sweet Caroline in your head right now,
I'd never get it out.
But you can. So that means that you have control over that inner world. The only problem is that that's only when your conscious mind is focusing on it. So most of the time, your conscious mind is, you know, taking care of other things. So it's your subconscious mind that's running the show, and your subconscious mind is like a hard drive. So it's just those stored thoughts that you have over and over again. So it's really about bringing self-awareness so that you're aware of what you're thinking. You catch yourself in those loops, and then you start to change it. It's repetition, and it takes time and it takes practice. But does it work? Yes, it does. And you can change it. You can change it for sure.
It is amazing. So Claira's hosting a retreat in London. Tell me more about this.
So I host day retreats, which are women only. They are all focused on your relationship with yourself.
Can I come?
Yeah, of course you can.
I need it.
100%. So this one is called Realigned. And it's a kind of retreat to just spend the day focusing on yourself. So I host a guided meditation, guided journaling session, and sharing. It's so such a beautiful and expansive day. We then have some really gorgeous food. And then the second half of the day is a sound bath that my friend does. So have you ever had a sound bath before?
No, but I keep saying I really want to try one.
They're so gorgeous. Honestly, and people don't realise. The funniest thing is that someone always falls asleep and snores. But everyone said, they're like, oh, I thought that was 15 minutes. And they've been there for over an hour.
Really?
Because you just drift off.
Wait, where can people buy tickets for this?
So they can go to my Instagram. So Miss Claira Hermet. And then the link is there.
Okay.
So yeah, that's happening, and I do them a few times a year, but they are really lovely.
Oh my God, amazing! I love that.
Yeah.
And then you're going to the Caribbean for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
What's a holiday?
Kind of. You know what it is? I started this year and I decided that I wanted to make a commitment to myself. So to really just trust my intuition and to do the things that I wanted to do. So I've been going to St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the Caribbean since I was about 23, so 17 years or so. I've got lots of friends there. And I was there in January and I just had the best time. And there was this little kind of intuitive voice that was like, you need to come back for longer. And normally what I'd do is be like, yeah, cool, when I'm there. And then I'd come back to London and then things would get busy and I'd make excuses and then I wouldn't go. Whereas this time I was like, nope, I said I'm going to commit to myself. So I don't know how I'm going to make this work, but it's going to work. So I just booked the flights and started, booking accommodation and hire car and all of those things.
I think that's so important though. I think, I don't know if it's not a men or a women thing, but I think people find it really hard to remind themselves to take time for themselves.
Yeah, but female solo travel, I think 80% of solo travelers are female as well. And there's a massive influx in that, which I find wonderful.
Does it ever make you nervous being a woman traveling alone?
I did when I was 32. So after I'd had the mastectomy,
Yeah.
I was working for BBC Radio 1 Extra. I was working for BT Sport, and I had this little voice inside my head that kept going, "Go traveling." Like, I know it sounds crazy, and I was like, I've never wanted to backpack or do any of that
Yeah.
in my life. Shut up. And it was like incessant. So I remember speaking to somebody who I worked with, and they're like, "You can't do that. Like, you've got your career to this point. You're going to mess it all up." And I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right." But this voice would not go away. So I told my family and friends, and they were like, "You should go. Like, go." So I did 10 months in South America on my own. But you meet people all the time. You're not
This
really
is what
on
I
your
need to
own.
do. This sounds incredible.
So yeah, I went, and I kind of knew the route that I wanted to go.
Yeah.
But I didn't put time limits on anything. I started in Brazil for Rio Carnival.
Amazing.
Which was a good way to do things. And then just went from there. But even like being in a city like Rio, and you hear really bad things, I was fine. I was absolutely fine. That's actually where I met my ex-boyfriend as well,
Really?
who was from London. But again, it was just like, I met so many incredible, amazing people. There were certain bits I was completely on my own. I never felt unsafe. I just had a great time, and it empowered me so much. I think it really brought home to me like how much freedom and choice I actually have. And also I think that we are in a society where, the news is always negative, everything, there's lots of kind of negative stories coming at us. And it's not to say that that's not real or it's not part of society.
But it's not the whole thing.
But it's not the entirety.
Yeah.
And it really gave me an appreciation for how many good people there are. I just had the best time, and I was 32, and I just took a career break and just went, fuck it, I've got one life and I'm going to do this. So I'm glad I did it.
Well, listen, Private Parts is going to be taking 6 weeks off. I'm going to the Caribbean.
They have studios there. You can do
Fuck
from
it,
there.
I'm going. Honestly. But I'm such a fucking pussy. I don't even think I could take myself for lunch.
Yeah.
But I need to get past that.
Just do it. Like, just start doing it. The thing is, like, some people will say, I find that stuff really uncomfortable, and that's cool. But when you do things, I think there's a difference between doing things on your own and doing things solo. It's like the events that I organise, loads of women come on their own, but there's other women there.
And then and then it's like a mutual thing.
And some people have now had friendships for over a year now, people that have met at my events, and that's such a lovely thing, because again, like, if your friendship circle, you've got a percentage of them that are like married with kids, and then some people move away, and the person that you are now as a 30-year-old is not going to be the same as the person that you were in school when you made some of those friendships.
Yeah.
So it's also good to have friendships that are where you are now and kind of nurture different parts of you, right? So, and again, like, you don't have to, if you find it uncomfortable to do things on your own, start showing up to things on your own.
Yeah.
But
And I think
solo,
that's so important.
Yeah.
I've tried to start doing that. I saw something the other day on Instagram, and I think it's called like not the Lonely Girls Club or something, but women all meet in Hyde Park just to walk together, and that's it. So I was like, that's just things like that is just so nice.
Did one of those on Sunday, a self-love stroll, but we went to Victoria
Self-love
Park in
stroll?
London. Yeah, it's
my
so
God, I really like
lovely.
that.
It's like 30 women all kind of just like chatting, conversating, and it's so interesting because they all have so much in common. Like, someone mentioned a book, and then everyone's like, yeah, I've read that. So it's really interesting that it's people that all seem to be in a similar kind of space in their life. And it's really not, everyone has just such a good day, and it's so nice to see people just happy and meeting new people.
Right, I'm going to start doing it. Okay, what would be your top tips for solo traveling? Pepper spray.
My top tips for solo traveling would be to like choose the place that you're going to go and do some research on that place. And, I guess it depends what kind of trip you want. And I think people have to think about this first, because sometimes you just want to go and chill by a pool in a hotel. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you're someone like me who likes a little bit of adventure, it's good to kind of, have some idea of where you're going to go when you get there. For some people, it makes them feel safe if they've got every single step of the way planned out and booked. Absolutely fine. So I think about what would make you feel most reassured and what would make you feel most comfortable, and book your trip in that way. There are so many helpful videos out there of people that have been to all these different places on their own that will give you so many tips. But I think aside from that, the next thing is actually do it, like book the trip.
And get on with it.
Because it's so easy to get, because it feels scary, because it's a little bit anxiety inducing, we kind of put it off, and it's like, I'll just watch a couple more videos. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
You just have to go, and you just have to show up. You can do a long weekend somewhere, and I think, again, that's probably the most important thing. will say about safety, and yes, you have to be aware of your safety. But we live in London. Are we going to walk
One of the
around?
dodgiest fucking places at this point, let me just add.
Yeah, but are we going to walk around somewhere that we don't know at 11
phone?
p.m. at night? As a woman on your own, you're not. So whatever safety precautions you follow at home, do the same when you're in another country. Like it's that simple. And my other recommendation would be stay in hostels. And the reason that I say that is because most hostels now have private rooms that are kind of on par with a hotel. So they're really nice. You can have privacy, but the social aspect is so great. So you will meet people to do things with instantly just by the nature of how they're set up. A lot of them have like co-working spaces because you've got people who are, kind of working from all over the place. And also the staff that work there are, so knowledgeable about where to go, what to do, what to see. So as much as, again, people think of hostels as kind of like bunks in rooms only for young people.
For Aussie blokes and their backpacks.
Right. But when you stay in a hotel, it's really different. And I did both when I was traveling, and the experience is so different because there was one time I was in Argentina and I wanted to go. I think it's called La Bamba. It's like this massive drum show that everyone talks about. And I wanted to go, and I booked a ticket. I walked there, went and brought a ticket, and I was like, I'm going to go on my own at night. And I heard these Aussie girls, funnily enough they were, in a room next door.
That wasn't slagging off anyone Aussie, by the way. We'll have to cut that out.
They love travel though. Aussies do love travel. So they were talking about the fact they were going to this like show, and I literally out of nowhere just got up, walked in there, and went, I'm coming with you. And they were like, who is this strange girl that's just walked in here and announced? And I ended up traveling with one of them for 3 or 4 months.
Amazing.
So, it's just a space to make really good connections. So if you want to go and chill in a nice hotel, do that. But if you're going on the to have adventure and to go and see different things, and you don't necessarily want to do that always on your own, then even if you stay at a hostel for a couple of nights and then go to a hotel, you've already made connections, and then you can use those and utilize them.
This is exciting me for my year ahead of my gap year, I think. Just finally, tips for dating and what you would suggest, because I feel people used to message me about dating advice. Don't fucking message me about dating advice, let me tell you right now, or breakup advice, because I'm not very good at it. But what would you say, like, the one thing is to look out for? Because I think, I'll be honest, my issue, and I don't know if it's because I see the good in people, not that I think everyone's bad and I'm not naive, but I think when there are red flags, I dumb those red flags down, and I don't know why I'm telling myself that they're not that big when they are big. But how, like, what's like one thing just to look out for generally when you are starting to date someone?
I think there is two different things, because I think knowing ourselves is so important. And the reason that I say that is, I know there's a lot of talk about attachment styles, but anxious attachment, avoidant, but we have to know why certain behaviors show up for us, why certain things trigger us. Like, for example, I know that I have anxious attachment. So in early dating, I can find it really difficult because this massive fear of abandonment comes up. Like, I'm never going to see this person again. I'm overwhelmed by emotion. It's not relative to the situation at all. If I'm not self-aware, I'm going to react from that situation and blame that person for making me feel this way. But actually, no, it's to do with my experiences in childhood. So I do think having self-awareness and healing ourselves as much as is possible before, because some stuff, again, is only going to come up in relationships. You're not going to, it's going to be, because we're so close to that person, it's only going to trigger certain things for us. But really having an understanding of ourselves, I think doing as much kind of healing and work on ourselves as possible, so that, like in your example, when it's a red flag, it's like, no, this is a red flag. This isn't me being, too dramatic or me being too analytical. This is an actual red flag, and it's not acceptable and it's not okay. And being able to trust yourself. And I think that's it. Like, sometimes
that's actually what it is, isn't it? It's like, I think because women don't have that sort of like courage almost to know that the decisions they are making are
it's
right.
the right one. Yeah. And we have to get to that point where we can do that, because the thing is, if we don't, we're going to end up with the wrong person for us and wasting a lot of time, and I've done that, and I'm sure loads of women have done that. But we want to get to a place where it's like, there are certain things that, yes, we can work on, that we can overlook, that we can compromise on, but there are certain things that we should not. And I think being really firm about what those things are and making sure that we stick to our boundaries is so important. And I think you cannot do that unless A, you're aware of what those things are, and B, you have that kind of self-confidence, that self-trust and that self-belief to be able to enforce those boundaries. And I think that is really, really important. So I think the key to kind of having good, healthy dating experiences is to have a really good relationship with yourself.
Yeah. No, it is so true. It is, yeah. Thank you so much. I think
Thank
you are
you.
completely amazing and that was incredible. So thank you very much for coming on Private Part.
It's a pleasure.